Here to introduce you to this new series is Walt Disney.
In our modern world, everywhere we look, we see the influence science has upon our daily lives. Discoveries that were miracles a few short years ago are accepted as commonplace today. Many of the things that seem impossible now will become realities tomorrow. One of man's oldest dreams has been the desire for space travel, to travel to other worlds. Until recently, this seemed to be an impossibility. But great new discoveries have brought us to the threshold of a new frontier.
And the special equipment needed for survival are much like those of present high-altitude flying. And the experiments we are making today are helping us to solve the more complex problems to come. To give you an idea of how engineers and medical men are working hand in hand, here are a few examples of the research that's being conducted at this time. This pressure suit is being worn in a test chamber where the air pressure can be dropped suddenly. Notice that the water boils at this low pressure, even though it is only at normal body temperature. Blood would do the same without the protection of the suit.
And here we go.
10.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
All 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 128 miles per hour. Hearing good control on the roll from teams in Mission Control Houston. All good calls so far. Now 30 seconds into the flight of Artemis 1. First milestone will be for the vehicle to pass through max Q at about 1 minute and 9 seconds into launch. This is the greatest period of atmospheric force on the rocket. SLS now traveling 607 miles per hour. You're looking at 8.8 million pounds of maximum thrust. Quiet here in the loops in Mission Control.
Tranquility Base to Taurus Littrow to the tranquil waters of the Pacific, the latest chapter of NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close. Orion, back on Earth. Unofficial splashdown time, 11:40 and 30 seconds a.m. Central Time.
These are extraordinary times, and we face an extraordinary challenge. Our strength as well as our convictions have imposed upon this nation the role of leader in freedom's cause. Now going on around the world between freedom and tyranny, the dramatic achievements in space which occurred in recent weeks should have made clear to us all, as did the Sputnik in 1957, the impact of this adventure on the minds of men everywhere who are attempting to make a determination of which road they should take. Since early in my term, our efforts in space have been under review. With the advice of the Vice President, who is Chairman of the National Space Council, we have examined where we are strong and where we are not, where we may succeed and where we may not. Now it is time to take longer strides. Time for a great new American enterprise. Time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth. I believe we possess all the resources and talents necessary, but the facts of the matter are that we have never made the national decisions or marshaled the national resources required for such leadership. We have never specified long-range goals on an urgent time schedule or managed our resources and our time so as to ensure their fulfillment. I therefore ask the Congress, above and beyond the increases I have earlier requested for space activities, to provide the funds which are needed to meet the following national goals. First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
40 feet down, 2.5, picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down, break shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. Down a half, contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The lamb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's 1 small step for man, 1 giant leap for mankind. Tony, this is so great you can't believe it. I believe it, Charlie. It's raining, Johnny. Okay, let's go, would you, Charlie? You got all your steering to get straight. Oh, this is going to be some kind of different ride. Hippity hoppity, hippity hopping over hill and dale. Da 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 da. Hippity hopping along. 1 ignition. Flat away, Houston. Vector good. We're burning flat. That's flat. Looks good, flight. How's the base shot, flight? Roger. Descending. Stand by for splashdown. Pt1 on the cruise down.
I'm Wernher from Braun, speaking for the Alabama Space and Rocket Center. Skylab gave us much data about the Earth, the Sun, the stars, and the universe. Would you like to see the inside of Skylab, where the astronauts lived and worked? You can do just that by taking a bus tour of the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama.
To the engineer, spaceflight poses two problems. The first is, of course, to build a rocket ship. The second, and no less important, is to prepare and train the men who are to fly the future rocket ships and to provide suitable working conditions that will enable them to survive in space. To help show you what is being done to solve these problems, we have called upon one of the foremost exponents of space travel, Dr. Wernher von Braun, who is at present the chief of the Guided Missile Division of the Army's Rocket Center at Redstone Arsenal. He was also overall director of the development of the original V-2 rocket.
Now here's a model, my design for a 4-stage orbital rocket ship. Compared to the unmanned instrument rocket, it is quite large. But the overall size and weight of the rocket is mainly determined by the 11 tons weight of this top section. This weight dictates the amount of fuel and the numbers of motors needed to produce enough power to equalize the gravitational pull of the Earth. The payload in the top section will consist of 10 crew members plus equipment. Notice the wings, small rocket motor, and landing gears. This is a section that must ultimately return the men to the Earth safely. To produce the energy needed to hurl this stage into the orbit, we need these 3 additional rocket-powered sections. Here we have a cutaway drawing of our rocket, showing the location of the fuel and the motors of each section. The first stage carries 1,060 tons of fuel, and its 29 motors will lift the entire weight of the ship vertically off the ground. The second stage has 8 motors and carries 155 tons of fuel. It will be dropped when its speed has reached 14,300 miles per hour. The next is our third stage, with only 1 rocket motor and 13 tons of fuel. The third stage gives the passenger section the final kick to attain the orbit. It will not be separated from the passenger section until just before the return flight. The third stage will be left in space, and a very small motor in the winged fourth stage will return the ship to the atmosphere so it can glide back to the base.
7, 6, 5.
The United States is ready to try and place its first Earth satellite into orbit. And there is a sudden tremendous burst of flame. We can see the Jupiter system.
Let's not forget that our payload is only a fraction of what Sputnik 1 was, and a small fraction of Sputnik 2's 1,100 pound payload weight in orbit. So again, I can only repeat what I said before. We are competing only in spirit with Sputnik 2 so far, not in hardware.
Well, we have a program called the Apollo Applications Program that is specifically designed to make maximum use out of the hardware developed in conjunction with the Apollo program, but can be put to other uses. These uses will be all kinds of scientific work in orbit, and some of the uses will involve the study of new methods to get a better hold on Earth's resources. Now, Earth's resources include such things as food and timber and ore and oil deposits and so forth, and there is a very good opportunity in conjunction with these orbital flights to develop sophisticated sensing devices and photographic devices to determine from orbit what crops one can expect, or whether timber is afflicted by tree diseases, or where one should go prospecting for oil or tin or copper. Of course, all this involves a sizable research and development program. Capability does not exist at once, but this Apollo hardware can be used very effectively for this research and development work.
When do you see man go into some other body other than the moon?
Well, I think the next target for men, other than activities, of course, in low Earth orbit, of which there will be many, will probably be Mars. We have learned a great deal about the planet Mars during the last 2 years, particularly through Mariner 9, which mapped the planet Mars thoroughly and discovered a few geological phenomena on Mars that nobody had expected.
Firing chain is armed. Sound suppression water system activated. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis on mission to build, resupply, and to do research on the International Space Station.
Houston now controlling. Atlantis begins its penultimate journey to shore up the International Space Station. Atlantis now in the proper alignment for its 8.5-minute ride to orbit. 4.5 million pounds of hardware and humans taking aim on the International Outpost. 30 seconds into the flight. Atlantis almost 2 miles in altitude, almost 6 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center already, traveling 500 miles an hour. The 3 liquid fuel main engines now throttling back to 72% of rated performance, going into the bucket, reducing the stress on the shuttle as it breaks through the sound barrier. 55 seconds into the flight, all systems operating normally, 900 miles an hour. The speed of Atlantis right now, 6 miles in altitude, 9 miles downrange.
Atlantis, go with throttle up.
All right, everybody. Can you hear us all right? How's that sound, Chris? All right to you?
Yeah, hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Does mine sound all right?
Yeah, perfect. Welcome, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. Pardon? We're all right there, aren't we, Chris?
Yeah, sorry with me. Fucking sound
You nice bit. Professionalism, that's what we want, Chris. Some professionalism. And welcome back to another Sheep Farm Raw live deep dive presentation. I hope you enjoyed that intro. I'll put the links to the music in there. There's some really good music that went with that fantastic Disney production of Deep Space. Because
You're trying to keep up with Rise Above guys playing a bit of house music for?
No, they've got me all ends up. All into my house music and my hip hop and all sorts of stuff. But but I hope you enjoyed that intro video. I think it went together quite well. In this presentation, we're going to be looking into obviously Wernher von Braun and his family, and this turned into a bit of a bigger presentation than I expected, as it always does. So it might be in two parts. This, but first we're going to do his family and his background, and also some of the prominent Nazis that came over prior to Paperclip as well. And in the second one, then we'll cover Paperclip sometime in the new year. And we're only using mainstream information, so we don't want any of that conspiracy nonsense, do we? I'd like to thank my mate Lorraine for all the additional research and info that she helped me with, just to read through and corrections of some stuff that I did. But well, anyway, with me tonight, as usual, as you can see, is our Chris. What you drinking? Which piss you drinking tonight? We'll get that bit over with first.
I've got a nice bottle of Bordeaux, but I'm not going to open it just yet. I'm going to wait a bit.
Why?
Right, I might get it later on.
Have you noticed how Chris always ends up getting more blathered the further on we get? Like after an hour, then all of a sudden he starts falling off edge.
I don't get blathered. Sometimes I get a bit leery.
Yeah, I put together a bit of a presentation for us here, and you can see a few pictures I've put together there. But there's quite a few people in actually already. We're up to 250-ish. Lorraine's in, Crab Klaus is in, Ross is in, Antikovia, Nicoist, Hog the Munch, Eye for an Eye, Saba, What the Flock TV. King.
Someone just said there, have you watched Europa, the last battle? I haven't seen that yet, have you?
I've started watching a bit of it.
Where can you watch it? Because John Hammer told us to watch that.
I've got it. I've downloaded it all.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone said, can I have a signed vest? I'm sure you can, Emma. She follows Emma. She follows us on Instagram as well.
Right. How come you sound very camp when you say it like that?
Hey, Emma.
You did, didn't you?
I've got a bit of a camp gene sometimes.
Today, I tell you who came to see me today before we start. Mark Bajewski. He's over from España to see his new grandchild, and he called in to see me.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah.
I'm still wearing his pennant,
They gave me some crystals.
You've always been into crystals, haven't you?
I don't mind it. I don't mind crystals at all.
It's funny,
not like you. I haven't been into crystals like you, but yeah.
Yeah, in the 90s, I used to make little necklaces a bit like this.
Yeah. Anyway, I suppose this is the Twats in Space first one that we've been talking about doing for a while, isn't it?
Yeah.
What did you think of that intro, Chris? Before we start.
Yeah, it was good. I liked his early spacesuit when he said if he didn't have that on, his blood would boil. For someone to put you in that suit, if they did it a bit wrong, your blood would boil.
Do you when he pulled that thing out and it?
I know. Nicer suit than they're using now, though. I think it looked a little bit more sci-fi, that did, didn't it, than they're using now.
Yeah, it looked like a Frogman suit, if you mean, from something from SBS. Yeah. How fast did you say that to go through to supposedly get out of that?
17,000 miles per hour to escape.
Right. Do you think a man could survive? Do you think a man could survive a speeding gun, a firing gun, a bullet?
5 miles a second they have to be going to get out of Earth's gravity, because they need Earth's gravity so it can hold all the seas and buildings and houses in.
Hang on a minute, you turn into Brian Cox then.
They need to go 5 miles a second just to burst out of it. All makes total sense, fair.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
that
does,
didn't look
yeah.
like it. That rocket, them rockets you showed didn't look like any of them were going to be reaching 5 miles a second.
No. Well, in my younger days, I used to work at Standard Fireworks, and how he showed that rocket being made with all them different things is how they used to put gunpowder in.
Yeah.
So really, it's just a giant Roman candle.
Didn't look quite as Thunderbird is that though, did they?
Yeah, FP Angels is in as well. A few people in. It's going too fast as the chat for me to keep up. So if I've missed anybody, I apologise. But this is, FP Angel said this is an excellent topic choice. There's actually too much information and you don't know what to choose. That's the problem with this so-called space. Interestingly, the new royal family, Kate and Baldy William, they've just had the picture taken with a nice sun at the back of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice
Sun worshipping
symbol,
going on. Have you got anything else to say about that intro?
Well, I can add, because I just looked before we started, as a detail, the moon is 238,000 miles away. 238.855 thousand miles away. Yeah.
Is that moon or moony?
The moon. But the edge of space is 73 miles away.
Right.
And the ISS is only 227 miles away. So imagine how much further they've got to go. 238,000 to nearly 239,000. And they've only gone 227.
Yeah, but when they go around the moon, it's like a slingshot.
Slingshot,
Yeah.
They always use that
It's a
slingshot.
slingshot. Yeah.
You whiz
like
around
slingshot.
It builds up some momentum and then... I've never seen any space footage that I thought looked real fair. Have you?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't answer any questions when we're doing this. Apologies. You'll have to email us. There's a few questions flying out, but by the time I've looked at them, they're gone. So, go say that again. Sorry, Chris.
What did I say? I can't remember what I said. I was trying to read that.
Don't be twat.
Don't look at me, no, you have to look at them later.
Yeah.
What did I say? I can't remember what I said. Never mind.
Right, we'll move on. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought we'd start with this bit. It's always a very interesting choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork.
Is that him telling us in plain sight that it's bollocks then?
Yeah, all 9/11 encoding as well, isn't it?
Or is
obviously.
he? Well, it's Psalms 9/11, isn't it? Is it 9/11?
9. Psalm 19:1.
Yeah.
All 9/11 encoding.
Did he have a moment of conscience, or do you think he was just telling you in plain sight that it were all bollocks? One or the other.
Yeah, one or the other. No, didn't really matter. I think they knew that it were all bollocks. So I want to hit that the Elon when he met in 1952. Wernher von Braun, novel he wrote, mentions Elon. We'll clear that bit up. Project Mars: A Technical Tale was released in 2006, or as a book, originally written by von Braun in German in 1948/49, while he was at Fort Bliss, Texas, having come over from on Paperclip. It was originally called Mars Project. The novel setting was reset in the 80s, and its first human mission to Mars and their encounter with benevolent Martians on the planet. While the book was not published for 57 years, its appendix, a technical specification for an expedition to Mars, was published in English in 1953. Now, they did mention someone called Elon, but this is a page out of that book where they mentioned it. It wasn't a person where they mentioned somebody called Elon. I'll just read this bit. The Martian government was directed by 10 men, the leader of whom was elected by universal suffrage for 5 years and entitled Elon. 2 houses of parliament enacted the laws and was to be administered by the Elon and his cabinet. So he was like, Elon was the leader. So Elon is our leader.
Crazy. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. You can't make the shit up, can you, if you really wanted to make it up? And there he is firing Teslas. And then if you went into Tesla, the link to Tesla as well. And what he did with the ionosphere, apparently,
One of the biggest things to point out is, especially with Elon, no one mentions that they're launching these rockets left, right, and centre, but we can't even drive as cars because of global climate warming, freezing change. So, but it's all right to fire massive, giant fireworks into the sky, let them drop into ocean. But apparently, no one even mentions how eco-unfriendly that is, do they?
Well, you can't. They're not eco-unfriendly, Chris. They're carbon neutral. Remember. Apparently, they've broke record now. It's coldest 2 days on record now, Chris.
Oh, is it really? God,
yeah, coldest 2 days. Yeah. Apart from Ice Age.
Some weirds going on.
Anyway, I pulled up these tweets from Musk about this book. If we make life multiplanetary, there may come a day when some plants and animals die out on Earth, but are still alive on Mars.
Right. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Can CGI some Mars planets. Well.
Just look at that last one there. Destiny, no escaping that for me. So these are quotes that he did around the time, not this book were launched, but on like a thread from this book. It's
very strange, the old space thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The first moon mission cost 135 billion in today's money.
Right. But they lost those plans, Chris.
They lost those plans, and they've not
135 billion up in smoke, so to speak.
They've not left Earth's orbit since 1972. But they're going to go to Mars, and then and that Artemis, whatever it was, they couldn't even get it off the ground and now they're going to launch it with humans on that in the next couple of years. Fine.
I used to think my dad's Artemis. To go clubbing in 1987. then I managed to splash out on Kouros.
Ooh,
yeah.
And jazz.
While you were still in Insignia.
I had a bottle of jazz.
Yeah. Anyway, so incidentally, Fort Bliss was home to the U.S. Navy's secret Blue Division, which experimented with the alpha waves of human unconsciousness. So this is where he wrote that book. Yeah,
right.
At Fort Bliss. So before we get into von Braun, I'm going to talk through some people who came out of Nazi Germany into the Cold War world, working for the West after World War II. A few people. I mean, we've had conversation with John Hamer, who seem to think that the Nazis, or Hitler in particular, was a good guy. I'm not really a proponent of that. I'm not saying that they were all bad people, by the way, but I'm not a proponent that they were good. I know Churchill on our side and the leaders of this side were just as bad as that, which I'll get into in a bit. But
I would say if there's a war, both sides are probably as bad as one another.
Yeah, but we'll get into a bit of that as well. And some, like, I think John Hamer went as far as saying if Hitler had won the war, it'd have been a better place to live. Now, I love John and I love what he's got to say, but we'll never know that, will we? Sadly, we'll never know. Personally, I'm not a proponent of that idea. I'm not saying that Western propaganda against the Nazis was all true, because I don't believe that either, or that the Nuremberg trials weren't just a kangaroo court, because I believe that as well. Because most of these people that came over in Paperclip should, if it was fair, a Nuremberg trial, most of them should have been at that trial, if that was real.
Openly said he invented the V2 rocket. I mean,
Yes.
what upside down world is it? And we know it is when they bring over a Nazi who invented the rocket that were bombing London, apparently, and get him to start the rub hands and hang around with Disney and start doing the space program.
Well, we will see that he did have links with General Electric that are dug out. And yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. And so even through the war, he had links with General Electric,
right,
in America. And so it's quite interesting when you see the links back. What I think is that the same New World Order power that's shafting us now both funded the Nazi Party into power and protected some of these individuals that came over in Paperclip after the war. And here's some of the examples. I just thought I'd go through some of the examples of some of the leaders and important men within the New World Order that came over. and it also fits with the Schwabian agenda. That's Wernher von Braun with a suit on, by the way, with his friend there. And it reminds me, the New World Order is like a pseudo mix, and you've said this quite a lot, Chris, of communist, fascist, democracy believers type of thing. They're all mashed into one thing, and that's what we're seeing now, isn't it?
Well, I think I've always thought that maybe they were all just test subjects, so they could find out the best system. All the isms, try them all out. Nazis and whatever was a bit harsh. Fascism was a bit harsh. I mean, communism.
Or a bit obvious.
A bit obvious. But we're living in almost the version probably that they want, somewhere between here and China, isn't it, I think?
Like Dreamland, where you think you're free, but you're being screwed.
Well, that's what they realise. They've got to make you think that everything's fine.
Yeah. And it's strange how the New World Order are using ex-Nazis or fascists and ex-KGB officers and communists from the Cold War and their relations and their offspring, and they're using them as terrorists, arms dealers, within organised crime syndicates and things like that. This isn't I know we're talking about space, but this isn't just about space. All these people are part of this
also, if
machine.
If the space story's a lie, why is it a lie-fi? Again, one main thing is to probably drain money.
Yes.
For other projects. Another one, like the previous nonsense we've just lived through, is probably to, I don't know, just to not scare the shit out of people, just to brainwash them just for the hell of it. Get a load of cash and then just sell a lie to the entire nation and everyone believes it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only my opinion. I don't know what space is. I don't know. But my opinion is, well, put it this way. I don't believe anything I see on TV that NASA's putting out.
Yeah.
And that's only my opinion. I could be absolutely wrong. And I'd be happy to be proved wrong. But there should be more footage and better footage. Not just that CGI flying around the Earth thing.
Yeah.
I mean, is that supposed to be real, that fire? Or is that supposed to be...
That was meant to be... Well, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't look any more unreal than any of the other crap that we've seen in pictures, does it?
Well, I mean, everyone knows now that the blue marble, the classic one on the Apple iPhone, that's a composite. Everyone knows that now. I mean, they've admitted it. So
you just love ruining my
sorry,
reality, don't you? Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, the spin-offs of the New World Order, obviously the UN, which to me is like the New World Order Parliament, and then we've got NATO, the New World Order Army, and their spin-offs like the World Bank, the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Economic Forum, and Operation Gladio, and things like that. All these people are linked within that. Anyway, here's Wernher's dad, Magnus Alexander Maximilian Freiherr von Braun. He was a German civil servant. We'll do a bit on his sort of genealogy and his background further on. And this is his Wernher and his brothers. He's the middle one. Is Wernher von Braun. And he's his older brother. Go on, sorry.
That's a pair of eyebrows, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the right pair of eyebrows. Dennis Ely would be jealous of them.
Parker.
Yeah. His older brother, Sigismund von Braun, former German chief of protocol, a German diplomat and Secretary of State in the Foreign Office. I think it's safe to say if you're a German diplomat at that time, you're probably something to do with security services. And here he is just after the war, shaking someone's hand. And here's his younger brother, Magnus von Braun, a German chemical engineer and Luftwaffe aviator and rocket scientist and business executive. And he's here with Wernher von Braun, who's got his arm in plaster from doing the Zeke Isle too much. He's had it permanently stuck in the same place. And his brother there with Mad Dog Bollock Eyes. There we go.
Well, he's got a pair of Mad Dog Bollock Eyes, isn't he? That's a shitty looking plaster cast. Did we get that to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. But let's start with a few prominent... that's his. These are his mates. A few prominent Nazis, just to get the ball rolling.
I have to give it to Nazis. I prefer their clothes to.
Clothes were good. Yeah.
Hugo Boss, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now, this chap here is Klaus Schwab's father, Eugen Wilhelm Schwab. I put an ICS at the end, and it's eugenic Schwab, isn't it? He ran the Swiss company Escher Weiss, which was based in Upper Swabia, where else? In southern Germany, in the districts of Ravensburg, Baden-Württemberg. Apparently, horrific crimes against humanity took place in Ravensburg. Now, I don't know how true this is. This is the official script. On January 1st, 1934, a law for the prevention of hereditary diseases came into force. I mean, we're hearing things like this now, aren't we?
Yeah.
We are, aren't we? We're hearing things
yeah.
like this now.
Yeah.
Coming to force in Germany, meaning people with diagnosed illnesses, think of Canada at the moment, such as dementia, schizophrenia, epilepsy, hereditary deafness, and various other mental disorders could be illegally, forcibly sterilised. So this is what where Schwab's father's factory was during all the war years. And Schwab, his father, or the factory, was awarded Escher Weiss of Ravensburg branch the title of National Socialist Model Company.
Didn't they get all their eugenist ideas from America? Well, who got it from England? And then was that before them?
No, it was
America or after.
It was England. It was England.
But then they actually
Francis Galton.
But they brought them into practice in America, didn't they? Actually,
yeah, I think it was pre and post war that. But
certain states of America, wasn't it?
Yeah. Escher Weiss also partnered with a Nazi nuclear weapons drive at the Norsk hydro plant, powered by Escher Weiss. Now, I don't know where everybody is on the nuclear nonsense, but I'm thinking that a lot of this, if space is nonsense, probably nuclear is nonsense as well. And I think that's just been another fear factor for 70 odd years. Like they're using it now, they're pulling it back out with Putin, aren't they? So these are the type of people who was there. Now, ironically, after the war, Eugen Schwab's father, we'll put some nice pictures up here of Schwab. Schwab's father was backed by Aldrich Rockefeller and Sir Henry Kissinger and Alan Dulles, who started the CIA. And he formed the Ravensburg Chamber of Commerce. And these people are all sirs. Sir Winthrop W. Aldrich Rockefeller and Sir Henry Kissinger. All honorary knights. And we're going to see this quite a lot. Same sort of thing going all the way through. Also, now these pictures here of Schwab with his lovely wife, Hilde Stoll. Her family, her family own a company called Festo, Festo. And that was a German business that also worked with the Nazis. Now, this business, one of its subdivision makes robotics, and you can see here, it's got a robot kangaroo, robot spider, robot Wuhan bat, and a robot, what's that other thing, caterpillar or something. And they turn over, they turn over, the billionaires anyway, put it that way, and the family still run the company, Festo, Uncle Festo, robotics. So when Schwab's talking about automation and AI, who's going to benefit from all this?
Right, his missus is involved.
Missus is involved. It's part of their family. Forgets to mention that one. I mean, that picture there, you know, the one next to the kangaroo with the ball under it?
Yeah.
That looks like, what was that film, Wall-E? Or R2-D2?
Yeah, looks like something from Wall-E, that does, yeah.
Yeah, and they're related to the Stolls, which is his wife, are linked to the Schwabs and the Bodmer families. And the Sulzer family own 50% of Escher Weiss as well. Still, the Bodmer family actually owns a property where the World Economic Forum headquarters are run from, as well as Schwab's house. This is how much he's intertwined into all this stuff. And Klaus Schwab, don't forget, he was knighted in 2006 and owns the honorary knighthood of Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. So, yeah. What was the National Socialist chant? One people, one Reich, one leader. One people, one new world order. One leader. and I think if you remember, I also linked Schwab back to the Rothschilds, way back to Baron Abraham Bacharach in the late 1400s. So the living Schwab, Sir Klaus Schwab, and the living Rothschild, Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, or he's not living now, I suppose it'll be passed on to the current heir. They have a common grandfather 15 generations ago, or there's a possibility that it's a common grandfather 15 generations ago, Rabbi Menachem Man Bacharach from 1395. And here he is on lighting a candle at Ground Zero. And he was actually there on 9/11 watching, having a coffee with one of the, I think it's that rabbi with a hat on, while the illusions went through them buildings. So yeah, there we go for him. Anyway, we move on. So this guy is also a prominent Nazi, and I know it's got nothing linked to space, this, but I found it quite interesting that these people come up when you're doing these searches. This guy, Hallstein, is a diplomat, and he was the first president of the Commission for the European Economic Community, and he was one of the founding fathers of the European Union. And he was, he gave the name to the Hallstein Doctrine. He was a member of several Nazi professional organisations, this guy, but he was not an official member of the Nazi Party. But in 1941, he was allowed to become a professor at law at the University of Frankfurt. And we know the University of Frankfurt is similar to the Tavistock University. And this book here that he wrote, have you seen who wrote the foreword, Chris? Jacques Delors and Sir Edward Heath.
Right, yeah. Nice. Might as well get a systemic paedophile to write your introduction.
Well, as it turns out, he also, the other names on there, I'll come to that in a minute, was Jacques Delors and Helmut Kohl. They were contributors to his book. And let me switch a picture. There's Heath. So Sir Edward Heath, Sir Klaus Schwab, and Sir Henry Kissinger. All Knights of the Realm.
Three Musketeers.
Yeah. So this is Helmut Kohl. He's a member of the Atlantic Council, Atlantic Brook, attended 3 Bilderbergers, and he became Chancellor after the war of Germany. And Kohl was sworn in into the Hitler Youth by this guy, Arthur Axmann, at Berchtesgaden just before the war ended. Axmann was German Nazi leader of the Hitler Youth, and that's him on the far end on the right-hand side. With the fancy, there must be space wellies as well.
That's what they based them on.
Yeah. As I say, Helmut Kohl went on to be Chancellor of Germany, and he was given the honorary knighthood. That's Helmut Kohl. All right, there we go. That's Helmut Kohl. He was also knighted the Order of St. Michael and St. George. Seems to be a theme going here, Chris. So this guy, Jacques Delors, he was Councillor Club of Rome, Council Future of Europe, Aspen Institute, UNESCO Commission on Education for the 21st Century. So all of these people are all contributors to what we're seeing today. Now, this Walter Hallstein, who the book was about, remained a bachelor all his life and a friend of Ted Heath. And Ted Heath said about him, giving him praises, he's just a brain. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to bore you with Nazism, but...
no, it's interesting fact.
Yeah.
It's all
there's a few... This guy, Adolf Herzinger, and I think this is the last one. I found, oh no, there's 2, but this guy's interesting. He served as operations chief for Hitler and the general staff of the high command of the German army in the Nazi German armed forces. He later became general for West Germany and served as head of the West German military and he was also chairman of the NATO Military Committee. So this is the guy who headed up Hitler's army, and he became head of NATO. Hasinger was rumoured to be in part of a group called Sches Troop, spelled SCHNEZ-TRUPPE. It was a secret army of veterans of the Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS that sought to establish in the early 1950s an army to protect them from Soviet invasion. Incidentally, the Sches Troop, or Sches Organisation, was an illegal clandestine paramilitary organisation formed in West Germany in 1949 under the leadership of Albert Schnez, Schnez, that intended to fight against Soviet Union. It has been reported that membership of some 2,000 former officers and 40,000 soldiers. Now, does that sound like Operation Gladio?
Mm.
Are you telling me US didn't know that? Or Britain? This guy knew about it. He was the Chancellor, Konrad Adenauer, and he was a visitor of Le Cercle, member of Le Cercle, and a member of the Knights of Malta. And German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer, or should I call him Sir Konrad Adenauer, whatever he's called, the most distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, given to him in 1956. He also received 4 papal knighthoods. The Supreme Order of Christ, according to some scholars, it owes its origin to the Order of Christ of the Knights Templar, and he got another 3 as well. So I think you could guarantee that was... also, when you think about it, coming back to, say, Ukraine, these people had the black sun as their logo, which is what the Ukraine army of a battalion have got in it.
Of that, what does it look like?
Somebody in here will tell us which battalion it is. I'm forgetting the name of it now. Yeah, they've got a black sun on there. So that was a Nazi emblem, wasn't it? The black sun.
Mm.
And the Ukraine have got a black sun. I've forgotten what it is. Tell us what it is, guys. Now, this is one of the most interesting one. Kurt Waldheim, or should I call him Sir Kurt Waldheim? Order of St. Michael and St. George. Waldheim was an Austrian politician and diplomat, 4th Secretary General of the United Nations, and President of Austria from 1986 to 1992. It was discovered that he had involvement in war crimes. And here's 2 sirs together. Henry Kissinger and Kurt Waldheim. I'm going to fly through this last one because I want to get on to... So this guy, German Prince Bernhard, I don't think he was knighted. He was a member of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which a lot of people had to be. I think that a lot of them had to be. And he was a member since 1933, ironically. Bernhard had sat on the board of the World Wildlife Fund, which he co-founded with Prince Dracula Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Godfrey A. Rockefeller, and Sir Julian Sorrel Huxley, evolutionary biologist, eugenicist, and internationalist, proponent of national selection, and he was also president of the British Eugenics Society. And that picture that we got where Prince Philip was stood on that lion's head.
Well, he wasn't stood on it, but he was just kind of hanging around it. Queen was there as well, actually. Yeah.
Was she?
Yeah. Well, I always heard that the Nazis...
The real Queen, or one with Freddie Mercury?
I always heard that the Nazis started up the first conservation of animals. I didn't realise it was the World Wildlife Fund.
Right. Well, it was a Nazi that helped start it up. He was also a arms dealer, this guy. And he was part of the Bilderberger group as well from 1955 to 1975. So he received £1 million bribe to ensure about a fighter jet that won over a French fighter jet, and it led to his resignation as a Bilderberger. Probably just because he got caught and didn't get away with it. It seems to me to be part of the whole same operation that were going on at this time, where people like these guys and the von Brauns and all the other paperclip operatives that came through were all part of this same thing. Why were these people allowed to come through, and some of them knighted? I mean, it's sort of a rhetorical question, but they were knighted. They were members of prominent job like NATO and the UN and prime ministers and presidents. It's quite blatantly obvious who these people were, isn't it? Right, so let's get on to the von Brauns, which is why we're here. The old guy there is Magnus Alexander Maximilian Freyer von Braun, and he was a German civil servant and a conservative politician. So again, all his children were from a political background, and his career spanned the German Empire, World War I, and the Weimar Republic. He was born into a family. He was born at his family's manor house in Germany called Neuken, which is spelled Neucken. German's great for Yorkshire. And an estate of the von Brauns, which they'd owned since the early 1800s in East Prussia. This is his wife. She was called Emmy Quistorp, and her father was Wernher von Quistorp. And Wernher von Braun's granddad was also a Prussian landowner. So this is Wernher von Braun's mother, and his granddad was also a Prussian landowner, and he was a member of the Prussian House of Representatives. Before I go on, the German nobility was a socially privileged section of the population until the end of World War I. So they ruled all the German territories in their area, and they were the ones in power. It sounds a bit like medieval, and until the end of the Holy Roman Empire in 1806, why it ended in 1806 would be interesting to find out. The German nobility was closely associated with the Holy Roman Empire. Hence why they're all getting papal knighthoods and things like that. All German federal princes were entitled to be ennobled. This did not change. So the von Brauns and the von Quistorps were all from an important lineage and could be called Baron. So the von part in their name is Baron. So really it was Baron Wernher von Braun. This lady's brother was an interesting one as well. He was a member of the German Gentlemen's Club, an association of large landowners, industrialists and bankers. During the National Socialist era, it changed its name to German Club. He was also a treasurer of the honorary commander of the Order of St. John. The Order of St. John, or the Knightly Order of St. John or Hospitaliers, which was founded a few decades before the First Crusade. So that's who these guys are, Chris. That's the background or one part of the background. The hospital dedicated to St. John, which was donated in Jerusalem in the Crusades. And it also has a Maltese flag as its order flag. So, yeah, anyway, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison in East Germany by the Hitler regime, so they call it, because it was a member of the Reichsbank Council. Now, we know who controlled the Reichsbank. The family relationship to Wernher von Braun is assumed to be the reason for his long imprisonment.
Don't want to go down that road, Fi, but old M.A. von Braun looks like a fella, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So does Schwash's missus as well, without being rude.
Yeah. But again, like we see all these prominent people, none of them look like they're from good stock. Or if you notice, all their family. If you remember that Tim Berners-Lee, where he was that came up with the WW dot, and his brother was a climate specialist, and his mum and dad were all early computer engineers. They're all, and the Mickey family, and then you look at sort of like the Huxleys and people like that. They're all part of that same clique, aren't they? Of people that come through that just seem like they're not really doing anything wrong. They seem benevolent, but in reality, there's one Von Braun with Disney. Next minute he's making and prior to that he's making V2 bombs that are killing people in London.
Weird.
Yeah, very. So this is his brother, and he was also Sigmund von Braun. He was the eldest brother, and he was Secretary of State in the Foreign Office in Germany in 1970. In 1939, he joined the Nazi Party, which again, a lot of people joined the Nazi Party in the 1930s. I'm sure they were sort of forced, or we've heard of coercion. We know the coercion happens to people with arm spears and stuff like that.
Also, it's just another party, isn't it? Everyone gets behind it, and then it turns in another direction. Is that not kind of what's happened to us lately?
Oh yeah, too right.
Just
yeah.
Quietly, just a bit of a softer version of it, but it's kind of the same thing. I mean, is there going to be witch trials for what's happened over the last couple of years? Who knows?
I don't know. I don't think.
And then what would happen to the people who signed up for it? They'd be like, people are like, but what were you doing? Why weren't you listening?
Yeah, why weren't you?
Like what happened in Nazi Germany? Same thing.
Yeah. But I mean, even this guy was a permanent representative to the United Nations. So we've got ex-Nazis running the UN that's funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, that given the land to build the UN facility in New York that basically runs the world now with all its spin-offs. And he was awarded the Grand Gold Medal with Star for services to the Republic of Austria. So they're all getting these awards, and they're all ex-Nazis. And yeah. Yeah, so as I said, they can use the title Baron. This is his younger brother, a guy with mad dog bollock eyes, and
that's stop laughing at that fucking plaster he's got on his arm. Why would you have such a
permanent Zeke Heil, permanent Zeke Heil,
like Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, he's had his arm permanently Zeke Heiled.
It looks weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what he'd done, but Magnus von Braun was a chemical engineer. And he was in the Luftwaffe. And he was also a rocket scientist. It looks like he's got one up his arse there. I hope he didn't go into a rocket lab with that SIG. And he was also part of Operation Paperclip as well. So when you think of Wernher von Braun, you don't think of his brothers or his father, do you?
No.
He was, again, pushed out into that front of the camera, wasn't he? Because he was more debonair or whatever he is. And he emigrated at 26. He emigrated. I mean, they make it sound like he had a choice to the United States via Operation Paperclip, where he worked. He also worked for some years at Fort Bliss, and Fort Bliss, as I mentioned earlier, is in New Mexico, with its headquarters in El Paso. The White Sands missile range is a military. We're going to go into these missile areas where they ended up going to in probably in part 2, and it's a testing area that was operated by the US. The range was originally called the White Sands Proving Ground, and opened on July 1945, and now it's called, the White Sands National Park is located within the range. So I don't know what they keep there, but. After its conclusion, 100 long-range German V2 rockets that were captured by US troops were brought here to White Sands Proving Ground, and 67 were test-fired between 1946 and 1951. So they were still using these V2 rockets that these people have been firing on Europe. And Magnus von Braun, like his brother, had worked at the Peenemünde Research Centre at the request of his brother Wernher. And he arrived there in 1943. And in 1944, Magnus was arrested with his brother Wernher and fellow rocket specialists Klaus Riedel, Helmut Gottrop, and Hans Lersen, but were later released. I presume the Gestapo, or maybe it was to develop some sort of PR story for after the war. That's what it sounded like to me. Like they were developing some sort of, PR story to make them look like they were anti-Nazis. So he was directly involved in the V2 rockets as well. And he worked at the Peenemünde Army Research Centre in World War II. And he developed rockets then for the US and was employed at the Marshall Space Flight Centre. And his family travelled to the US on board a ship. It was likely that the one they travelled on was likely to be Argentina, which arrived in New York. And Magnus was in charge of, this is where it gets interesting with the links back to America during the war. Magnus was in charge of hypergolic fuels for the newly developed Wasserfall project or Waterfall project, which was a remote-controlled AA rocket. And it was a guided supersonic surface-to-air missile project that was started in World War II. And development was not completed until after the war. How convenient. And it was not used in operation. In its capacity, he worked in conjunction with IG Farben industry. And IG Farben was a German chemical pharmaceutical conglomerate, which formed in 1925 from a merger of 6 chemical companies, including BASF, we've heard of all these, Hoechst, AFGA, and Bayer, which now Bayer obviously own Monsanto.
Oh, weird. AFGA and BASF meant fucking tapes, didn't they, in the 80s?
Well, exactly, yeah. So they all merged and then they ended up splitting back up after the war. In its heyday, IG Farben was the largest company in Europe and the largest chemical/pharmaceutical company in the world. It has been described as the most notorious German industrial concern during the Third Reich. Now, I'm reading what it says here. I'm not saying I agree with it or don't. What I will say is it was never bombed during World War II. It wasn't on the list to be bombed. It escaped complete bombing.
Yeah.
And there's a reason behind that.
So did Buckingham Palace.
Well, if you think about Buckingham Palace, Chris, one, it's not much of a target. You're not going to get right lot of payback from doing that, are you?
No.
And also, how could you see Buckingham Palace? I mean,
that tiny white building.
yeah, that with a beefeater stood outside. And apparently, IG Farben conducted medical experiments on camp inmates.
Right, nice.
Which, do you know what? I'm sure went on. I don't think all of it is nonsense, not from where I've looked in at anyway. But it also has direct links to banking dynasties of the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, and the Rockefellers via Standard Oil. In an article written in, I don't think I can get this, I don't think I've put this on, but let's see that his arm there and that one.
Coming right at you. 3D.
Yeah. Maybe he's got like repetitive strain on that arm. In an article written in 1942, so way back in 1942, by a guy called Michael Strait, entitled Standard Oil, Axis Ally. In the midst of the storm and the thunder, the lightning strikes, American industry and the press have demanded of Labour whether, after opposing a cut in wages, it dares to look General MacArthur in the face. Now we demand of industry whether General MacArthur would prefer to stare at Walter Teagle, Frank Howard, and the other officials of Standard Oil, members of a conspiracy with a Nazi corporation to hold back the development in America of vital war material and synthetic rubber. From Thurman Arnold's testimony before the Truman Committee, it is clear that while the American people were moving towards an alliance with the democracies, great sectors of American industry were strengthening their ties with fascist Germany. I would remind you that all the Arnold family, I'm sure, are one of the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati. In fact, the Huxley family, Julian and Aldous Huxley's mother was Julia Arnold. They're a very prominent family in England and America. There's also a German side spelled Arnhold, which is linked to the Arnold family, which has ties to the Rothschild bank. Anyway, in another article, in 1978, New York, written by Robert Sherrill. So going another 30 years or so, after World War I, the French, remembering 15,000 Allied troops left on the field at Ypres, dead or their lungs permanently scarred by IG Farben's chlorine gas, wanted to dismantle the company. But IG Farben had high-placed American friends and helped prevent that from happening. On several later occasions, they would again help rescue the German corporation. By the end of the 1920s, IG Farben had developed a solid partnership with Rockefeller's Standard Oil. I mean, this goes on and on. The list that these people were linked to, all of these companies, the main financing started in 1904. So they were financing IG Farben to make poison gas that were killing their own people, to give them a fuel source, which I'm going to play a video in a minute to show, a fuel source that helped them with their fighter planes and stuff like that. The fighter planes couldn't get, or the planes couldn't get off the ground without this fuel source that they had. And all the way through the war, they were sending this and helping the German war machine. So during the war, IG Farben paid royalties to Standard Oil on fuel they used in planes that were bombing London. None of the IG Farben buildings and factories were touched by Allied bombing raids during World War II. And this is Wernher von Braun working with the German company IG Farben and Standard Oil. In fact, at the internment camp that they were there after the war, known as the CSDIC Camp 11, the British bugged von Braun's boss, Major General Dr. Walter Dornberger. That's him there. The guy in the middle where he's doing his Zeke when he's got his pot on his hand, and the guy on the right-hand side with the other German officers. That's Dr. Walter Dornberger, who in conversation with General Gerhard Besenge said that he and Wernher von Braun had realised in late 1944 that things were going wrong, and consequently was in touch with General Electric Corporation through the German embassy in Portugal with a view to coming to some arrangement. General Electric was founded by J.P. Morgan, Thomas Edison, and Charles A. Coffin. So that means that General Electric was another Rothschild spin-off. What I'm saying is that Walter Dornberger and von Braun and over 100 key V-2 rocket personnel surrendered to the Americans and ended up working at the Redstone Arsenal, and that's what he was talking about on them Disney films.
Right.
And General Electric used some of what he called technology. The GE-powered Vanguard rocket were using General Electric technology that Wernher von Braun were working on after the war. So yeah, I'm going to play this Anthony C. Sutton video. Just give us a short breather because a lot of information. But Walter Clark Teagle was president of Standard Oil in New Jersey, and he was also a director of IG Farben's American subsidiary. He allied Standard Oil with the German company that conducted all the research jointly. And Teagle was accused after the war to contributing to Nazi Germany during World War II through his involvement with the chemical company IG Farben. But he was also awarded the 20th Century Great American Business Leaders by Harvard Business School. I mean, if you think about looking these corporations funding the German war machine, if you look at the World Economic Forum and them 1,000+ businesses that turn 5 billion over that are invited in to qualify to fund the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization, it's the same principle, isn't it? I mean, look at the World Economic Forum and the Young Global Leaders. It's like the Hitler Youth, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels in there.
There's a lot of parallels in there. And just let me find this this video. This here, I don't know if anybody's watched Anthony C. Sutton. This is an interview from 1980. It's only 2 or 3 minutes long, but I find it quite interesting to see these people who've done all this research talking about these things.
Dr. Sutton, you wrote 3 series of books while you were a research fellow at the Hoover Institute. Can you give me basically the background of the content of these series?
Yes, the series I wrote at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University concerned the transfers of Western technology to the Soviet Union. And essentially it comprised 3 individual books. Each book covers a period of time since 1917.
And then you wrote a second series of books on Wall Street.
Yes, these were trade books. In other words, they're not academic books. They're written for the general public. They concerned the build-up of the 3 types of socialism: Bolshevik socialism in Russia, what we might call welfare socialism in the United States, and Hitlerian or National Socialism. And each book examines the financing and the contributions made by Wall Street, by international bankers, to the development of that specific form of socialism.
Let's go a little bit into the background of the financing of the German war machine that we fought in the period 1941 to 1945. Could we start, first of all, with the original financing of Hitler between 1922 and 1923, when he was first making his effort to come into prominence in Germany?
The original financing of Hitler, that's in the years 1922, came only partly from Germany. One of the most prominent Americans concerned with financing Hitler was Henry Ford. In fact, Henry Ford received a medal in 1938 for his assistance to the early Nazi Party. Then, of course, Hitler had his attempted push in 1923. He went to jail, and then we begin another era in the rise of Hitler.
Right, and of course, he eventually came to power in 1933 by the electoral process. What about the financing of Hitler's electoral activities in 1933?
This I can trace. I have traced it very exactly. I discovered amongst the Nuremberg records a series of bank transfer slips to the Delbrück-Schickler Bank in Berlin to an account which was under the control of Rudolph Hess. And this was the fund that was used to finance Hitler's access to power in March 1973. And amongst the corporations that transferred money to Hitler, I find not only R.G. Farben, which is quite widely known, but also German General Electric, AEG, which is under the control of General Electric in the United States, or was at that time, and companies like Osram and...
Now, what was the tie-in between Osram and General Electric?
The tie-in was a share tie-in. International General Electric in the United States had controlling interest in German General Electric, and also through share interlocks, a controlling interest in Osram in Germany.
So then we have Ford and we have General Electric helping to finance Adolf Hitler's rise to power. Were any other large American corporations involved?
Very definitely. Standard Oil, through its technical association with IG Farben. For example, Germany could not have gone to war in 1939 without tetraethyl. You need tetraethyl to raise the octane value of aviation gasoline. Germany had no means of doing that. This was developed in the ethyl laboratories in the United States and transferred to the Germans. Standard Oil came up with the hydrogenation idea, which was very essential for Germany in the 1930s, because to raise the quality of its gasoline for aviation purposes. This was transferred to the Nazis.
There we go.
Mr. IBM.
Well, there was a lot of them. There were too many to mention, Chris. And was he the guy that lifted the lid on all that stuff? Yeah, he was one of them. Anthony C. Sutton, and somebody mentioned Carol Quigley. There were also another a good book of Anthony C. Sutton's on this subject is Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler.
Was
by
that
Professor,
him? Was that him?
yeah,
I remember
Professor
seeing it,
Anthony C. Sutton. There's also another guy called Charles Hyam who wrote a book called Trading with the Enemy. I'll put that on here now.
I've never read Wall Street one, but I remember seeing it at your house.
Yeah. These books here are good reads on this subject if anybody's interested in this type of subject. But it's quite an interesting subject, as in we know this goes on. I mean, we're not learning anything really that much new. It's just the interlocking of von Braun working for General Electric and also them contacting General Electric, who were funding the research into V2 rockets, if you like, because they were utilising their technology. So,
and then marrying him with Disney is just
I know it's the ultimate piss take, innit? And then he'd been involved in NASA as well.
But again, is that like Hancock going into I'm a celebrity, wank me off out of here?
It's just the same thing, isn't it? I'm a wankocker roach.
Is it just is just another piss take?
Yeah, probably just another satanic piss take. So in 1943, Magnus, the younger brother, and Wernher von Braun worked together at the Peenemünde facility to work on the V2 rockets. And Magnus reported directly to this guy, Arthur Rudolph. And Rudolph was part of a group of scientists who emigrated with the von Brauns during Operation Paperclip. And he was also a rocket engineer and the leader of the V2 rocket effort in Germany. And he went on to work for NASA and the US Army, where he managed the development of several systems, including the Pershing missile, which I've heard, and the Saturn V moon rocket. And which they lost the blueprints to. In 1984, he was investigated by the US government for war crimes, a bit late in it after about 40 years. And he agreed to renounce his US citizenship and went back to Germany. Magnus von Braun, the younger brother, worked for Chrysler with Chrysler's missile department. So the guys that make cars also make weapons, and later it's automotive divisions. So we come on now to Wernher and the last part of this, really. He was called Wernher Magnus Maximilian Faraya von Braun.
I like the word. I like the name Maximilian. Nice name.
Yeah, nice name. Like an evil baddie.
No, I like it as a name. I wasn't joking, actually. I do like it.
Right. Maximilian.
But if you're called Baron, you can't help but think evil.
Yeah.
Of some I don't know, it just sounds evil. I don't know why.
Yeah. And just plain old SS Major Baron von Braun might do as well. Because he became a major in the SS, as well. And here he is with Kennedy, Eisenhower, and there he is with his Saturn worshipping rockets. This is his wife. He married his cousin, who, like his mother, was also called Emmy, and she was also a von Quistorp, as we see here. And her father-in-law was another baron. I'm not going to say his name, but one of his names was Albrecht, and you might recognise that Albrecht. It was called Alexander August Gustav Henrik Achim Albrecht von Quistorp. Right name, that, isn't it? The Albrecht name is possibly related to the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, whose maiden name was Albrecht. And also, Theodore and Karl Albrecht founded ALDE with a combined wealth of 30 billion. Now, I'm not saying that they're all interrelated, but they all come from a similar place. And I'm not saying there's a relation there. I couldn't find a relation between Ursula von der Leyen, Albrecht, and the ALDE guys or this woman. But it's interesting that he's got the Albrecht name in there. So her father was a German landowner and a parliamentarian as well, and her mother was daughter of Eugen von Falkenhayn, a Prussian German general. His ancestor could be traced back to 1500s. His brother became the tutor of Crown Prince Wilhelm. His other brother, Erich von Falkenhayn, was a chief of German general staff of the First World War. And his sister's son was Field Marshal Fedor von Brock during the Second World War. So there's quite a pedigree again, isn't there?
Some clout, yeah.
Back there, yeah, they've got some clout. Wernher, as we know, was an aerospace engineer and a space architect, whatever that means, and he was also a member of the Nazi Party and the SS. He held the rank of SS Sturmbannführer, which was awarded to him in June 28th, 1943, which is a major.
It's pretty late on as well, though. Pretty late on in warfare.
Pretty late on, yeah. His SS number was 185068. The US Secretary of State, Edward Stenius Jr., approved the transfer of von Braun and his specialist. Now, do you know, there's a lot of talk of whether that Wernher von Braun invented the V2 rocket. I don't believe that, to be honest with you. When I've read a lot of this stuff, that guy Dornier here, he ran the Peenemünde Research Centre. He was the head of the V2 rocket research. There were a lot of people involved in the V2 rocket. For some reason, and we're going to come to that now in a bit, and you'll realise why I say for some reason, von Braun was chosen to head it up. It's like it was his baby. He's come over and, going to the moon was his baby, or inventing a ballistic missile was his.
Again, like the Elon Musk stuff and the Microsoft stuff and everything else, Facebook, everything. You need that one face, don't you, just to sell it? And
yes. Yeah.
I've always thought that. He was chosen to just sell it, wasn't he?
Are you telling me Elon Musk Tesla car in space, really?
I've got a strong feeling that roadster is not floating around in space. No, it can't be fact, because it'll have been ripped to pieces by micrometeorites by now.
Ah, yeah, micrometeorites. Yeah.
Or it'll have gone through Van Allen belt and just peeled itself to death.
Yeah, yeah.
But who knows? Who knows?
It's strange, isn't it, though, that like all these people who work for the German army that were the enemy are now working for the US Army or the British Army as well. Some of them working for the British Army.
Well, also quite surprising that he were awarded in 1943, so it's towards the end of the war. So do you think he shit himself because he was a major in the SS and went, I'll roll over, I'll do whatever you want.
Well, at the end of the day, whatever he's done, he definitely worked at Peenemünde that used slave labour and other areas, and were using. But I mean, I'm not saying he said he didn't witness any of the ill treatment of inmates, camp inmates, but he didn't say that there were no ill treatment of camp inmates.
So he didn't witness it.
He didn't witness it. What does witness mean? I don't know. And Peenemünde was bombed to shit, whereas IG Farben wasn't, and so won't Buckingham Palace. The docks were though.
Yeah.
But who cares? Who works there? Do the royalty work there? No.
No, and all the cheap housing in the East End that were all bombed because he wanted to redo it anyway.
But mind you, they didn't bomb Parliament, but then again, they blacked out Big Ben, didn't they? So they probably couldn't see it.
Yeah, it won't have been there to see it.
Yeah. So he helped develop rockets and apparently launched the United States' first space satellite, Explorer 1, in 1958. And I tell you one thing that does come out in all this. One thing that does come out in all this, Chris, there was some really good art drawn.
Yeah. That I know what you mean. I was just looking at that. Those early space rockets. Even those models he had were pretty nice. You know what I mean? Nice plastic. Yeah. Some effort had gone in there. Isn't it funny that space station model he rolled it up there has become like the model for the space station right up to now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly
right
like that now, but it was used in 2001.
It's Lego, isn't it? It's Lego.
Yeah.
It's Lego. It's Lego. Because I mean, like you said, they talk about micrometeorites. That thing. I mean, if me and you slap that, it'd fall in bits.
If micrometeorites existed, there wouldn't be an ISS space station, or it's not far enough out to get hit by him. I don't know, and Musk wouldn't be launching his car up there, and they wouldn't be sending that rocket to the moon right now.
No.
If anyone's seen Gravity, they can just turn up at any time. I mean, you just wouldn't go into space, would you, if micrometeorites were a thing? You just would never. You would never go.
Wouldn't. So that picture there was... go on, sorry. Go on.
No, I'm going to say it just contradicts everything. There's always a contradiction there that just contradicts everything.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about nuclear bombs earlier. The thing is, if a nuclear bomb's gone off, you know, they say thousands of years before it's livable again. But then everyone lives everywhere where nuclear bombs have gone off. They've set hundreds off all around the world, so none of it makes any sense. It's just that massive contradiction is always there, is what I mean. Sorry, go on.
Yes, too right. Yeah, it's the upside down world, isn't it? This picture here was done in Collier's Weekly magazine entitled "Man Will Conquer Space Soon." It was published in 1952, and a lot of these pictures were drawn by. Well, that's Arthur C. Clarke, but these are some of the drawings that were drawn by this guy, Chelsea Bonestell. No, sorry, Willie Lay, something like that it were called.
Right. Yeah, like that early science fiction.
There he is.
Like that, isn't it?
Yeah. So these articles were illustrated by space artist Chelsea Bonestell and were influential in spreading his ideas. Frequently, von Braun worked with fellow Braun space advocate and science writer Willie Lay to publish his concepts. So this guy here is another one that draws all these Saturn pictures and things.
Yeah. I mean, they look like that now, don't they? I mean, what I mean is, you know, art for science fiction books, it still looks like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's Arthur C. Clarke. So Arthur C. Clarke is another proponent of obviously nonsense. And he's right, science fiction writer, science writer, futurist, inventor, undersea explorer, and television series host.
Yeah.
Mr. Actor.
Yeah. I quite like Arthur C. Clarke's books, so I've read quite a few of them.
Right. Were you telling me he wrote the screenplay for Space Odyssey?
Yeah, of course he did. Yeah, he wrote the book and the screenplay.
I'm not a space person, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's not my.
I've always been a science fiction fan, but he also got accused of being a pedo as well.
Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, he lived in Sri Lanka.
Right.
He lived in a massive house, and I actually saw him, and he was saying, "I live in Sri Lanka because I like to swim in the sea." He got away with it, by the way, because I like to swim in the sea because it's the nearest thing I can get to space. But then it showed him in this massive house surrounded by a load of little Sri Lankan kids, guys, boys, whatever.
Right.
But then he got accused of it. He got away with it. But my guess would be. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, another controlled entity about the sound of it. And obviously, von Braun worked with our friend Walt Hitler, Disney, on a series of films which popularised the idea of the human space travel, and in the US beyond 1950. Well, between 1955 and 1957. So he's a serious guy, apparently. Ex-SS major, builds V2 rockets that blow people up, and then he works for US Army, and then he's invited to Disneyland to make some films.
They should have nothing to do with each other, should they? They shouldn't be.
No, there should be no link at all.
Relevance or link to them two knocking around together.
There shouldn't be any. Why is he making on a kids' film?
Why is he hanging around with
production
Walt,
company?
Basically,
yeah. In the hope that its involvement would bring about greater public interest, I'd call it more like mind control programming.
Total propaganda,
yeah. In the future of the space program. So this was where they started the buying, wasn't it? Or one of the areas after the war, anyway. And he was actually a Disney Studios technical director.
Ooh, von Braun was?
Yeah.
Right. That's some jobs, that lad, isn't it?
Yeah. He has had some jobs. Do you know Arthur C. Clarke was known by the moniker Prophet of the Space Age?
Right. Yeah, well, he was, because he made it all up for the space age.
Apparently, Arthur C. Clarke inspired Tim Berners-Lee to invent the World Wide Web.
Right. And didn't he inspire the first satellite? Didn't he invent
something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How many satellites are in space? I mean, that's another one, isn't it?
I don't know.
How many satellites have been chucked into space?
Dodging the satellite and the micrometeorites, you'd have a job getting anywhere, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Tomorrow, I mean, look, anyway. Initially, it was that film that I put on at the beginning was filmed for 3 television films about space exploration, and the initial one was called Man in Space and went on air in 1955, drawing 40 million viewers in the US, I presume, and it was nominated for Best Documentary Short.
So if 850 satellites have been launched by the end of April 2020, so I don't know how many it is now.
Ever.
Oh, how many have been launched? No.
Yeah. Because they're still flying around somewhere, aren't they?
I think 12,293.
So
by the end of January 2022, there were 12,293 objects launched into space. Some of them would be rockets, but the majority must be satellites, mustn't there?
So there's still 12,000 satellites flying around?
Well, it says 12 have been launched into space, so some of them will be rockets, blah, blah, blah. It says here, but then this doesn't make any sense because it says 850 satellites. So it contradicts itself again.
Yeah,
so
well, they don't want to tell you that...
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense, to be fair.
No.
It's just more. 8,000.
Somebody has said, hang on a minute, somebody has put, we never went to the moon, satellites don't exist, wake up, lads. Have you been listening to this, Jay Rollerson? Have you been listening? Wake up, lads. Do you really think we think that satellites exist? Get a grip. Come on. You wake up, boy.
Fucking hell.
I know. Why do we bother sometimes? I wonder.
I know. It's mad here as well. When you look at it, 4,852, 5,500, all in 2022. I mean, talk about contradicting numbers. 3,055. Fucking yeah. There's dozens of different.
Is that the space links or whatever Musk is saying to link up with a Neuralink?
I tell you what, I wish I'd be able to show you. Picture of Earth with like millions of little dots around it, and they're all this stuff.
Somebody's put Don, my favourite Cocoa Pop.
Yeah,
that's my name, Caramac or Cocoa Pop.
I were Caramac.
Yeah, you were Caramac as well. Von Braun is seen, right? They called him the father of space travel.
Yeah, of course he is. That's what they set him up to be, isn't it?
Father of rocket science and father of the American Lunar program or lunatic program.
Got a lot of kids, hasn't he?
A lot of them, yeah. And he advocated a human mission to Mars. Where's Godvlamast when you need him?
Well, again, Mars. Yeah. Mars is the classic, innit? Because when I was looking at some stuff on this, 2018. Then before that, it was 2016. Before that, it was blah blah blah. And now it's 2024? I think Musk's saying we'll be going to Mars.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing that fucking thing back over and over again.
It's all right, Mr. Rowlandston. And you've only just joined. I understand now why you said that. Come on, lads. Don't worry about it, man. He was known as quite a charismatic personality and a ladies' man, and apparently he had, and you can see how these people can be easily controlled, can't you?
I'm going to say, was that ladies' man moniker? Was that payment for what he's doing?
Well, maybe either payment or these ladies were controlling him, drugging him, whatever.
Yeah.
As well, they could have been if they were working with the CIA, which I presume they were to come over in Operation Paperclip or the OSS. Ironic that were called the OSS as well, wasn't it? Office Strategic, whatever it was. And he would also had affairs with several in the secretarial and computer pool at Peenemünde in Germany, apparently.
Right.
Mind you, if he saw his wife's mother, he might think that. Anyway, I don't believe that von Braun invented the rocket. Does anybody else think he invented the rocket?
No, not for a second. Just as much as Elon Musk invented that Neuralink and numerous other things and bought Twitter, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I don't believe. It's only me thinking, but I don't believe any of that shit.
No. He's a front man, isn't he? Like Gates, Musk, Zuckerberg, exactly. All these other weirdos that are pushed out into the limelight. He was that modern day, that old, one of the first ones.
Early versions of it. Yeah, early versions of it. Totally tied into Disney, whereas all these other guys are tied. I suppose, is that a version of Musk being tied into Twitter? now. You know?
Probably.
You know what I mean? Is it similar?
FP Angel says they've been reverse engineering the construct for a long time, and that's probably true. That well, it's not probably. It seems to be true. I can't keep up with the chat to put some of them up. Every time I go near one, it moves, so I'm not even going to attempt it. So, right, why were the von Brauns chosen? So, these people are chosen for a particular reason to lead this, as a lot of the research shows, and 127 of them eventually came through Operation Paperclip from Peenemünde and the V2 rocket research. Oh, we've got Godvadge in the chat. Evening. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're not going to pull us up on any little mistakes we've made here.
What's his name there, Fi?
I don't know.
No, in the chat. How did you know he was in
Good to have you on board. Yeah. And the majority have been involved with the V2 rocket, as I say, and they all went through Paperclip. And most of them spent their careers working for the NASA space exploration program in Huntsville, Alabama. I think Forrest Gump were there as well, wasn't he? Von Braun worked at many of these groups. He worked at the US Army Intermediate Range Ballistic Missile Program before his group went to NASA.
Right.
So he was working for a lot of these things, as well as Disney. he was making rockets to blow you up, go to the moon, and work for Disney. Nice mix. Just a nice merger of and IG Farben.
And a ladies' man, busy guy.
And a ladies' man as well. Yeah, just charisma. All he needed to do was play the guitar, wasn't it? And he did
and a harmonica.
And a harmonica, yeah. According to NASA source, he's without doubt the greatest rocket scientist in history. His crowning achievement was lead to the development of the Saturn V booster rocket that helped land men on the moon in July 1969. In 1975, he received the National Medal of Science. So here we go. As always, it's in the Ancestry. That's why I put them pictures up. His mother, who I mentioned earlier, Emmy von Quistorp, that nice-looking Melinda Gates-looking lady, the von Quistorps could trace their ancestry through... It's always the mother, isn't it, Chris? Seems to be. Yeah. Always the mother. Trace their ancestry through both parents to medieval European royalty. Wernher von Braun, or SS Major von Braun, is a direct descendant of 3 royal European families. Prince Philip III of France, who was called the Bold King of France from 1270 until his death. His father, so he's directly related, a direct descendant of Philip III of France, is Wernher von Braun. Right. Yeah. His father Louis died in Tunis during the 8th Crusade. So again, it all comes back to this crusader into the priest-class country over there in Jerusalem. And Philip was accompanying on this crusade, and he was anointed king in 1271. And he was succeeded by his son, also called Philip. Philip III of France's mother was Margaret of Provence. She's the eldest of 4 daughters of Raymond Berengar, Count of Provence, and Beatrice of Savoy. This gets quite interesting, actually, because Margaret's younger sisters were Queen Eleanor of England and Queen Sanchia of Germany and Queen Beatrice of Sicily. Are you keeping up, Chris?
Yeah.
The House of Savoy was a royal dynasty and was established in 1003 in the historic Savoy region. Through gradual expansion, the family grew in power from ruling a small alpine country northwest of Italy to absolute rule of the Kingdom of Sicily from 1713. When they were handed the island of Sardinia in 1720, I think it was, over which they could exercise direct rule from then onward. The residences of the Royal House of Savoy in Turin and the neighbourhood are protected as a World Heritage Site. So this is extra, not just Prince Philip, yeah? But it goes back to Italian royalty. Most of these people now, because there's no Italian royalty, they all live in Switzerland. So they've moved now
say,
to live in neutral Switzerland.
But also, has the royal thing just been changed for black suits?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Business, prime ministers, etc.
Well, that's what they are. They're all all these old royal houses.
That's why when you ever find that, they're related to so old king or queen, it's the same shit going on, isn't it? Just
well, going back to Prince Philip and that
black
guy, Prince Bertrand, who married the Queen of the Netherlands, and they both founded the World Wildlife Fund. Yeah, if you think about it, when everyone knew that Prince Philip was a Nazi supporter and a hunter, yeah, exactly, etc. Anyway, the von Brauns are also related to Valdemar I of Denmark, also known as Valdemar the Great, who was king of Denmark until his death in 1182, and the reign of Valdemar saw the rise of Denmark. So lastly, he's related directly to Robert III of Scotland, born John Stuart, was King of Scots from 1390 to his death, and he's the monarch of the House of Stuart. The senior living member of the Royal House of Stuart, or members, descended in the legitimate male line from Robert of Scotland, is Arthur Stuart, 8th Earl of Castle Stuart, the current Jacobite heir to the claim of the historical Stuart monarchs. And the other one is Franz, Duke of Bavaria, of the House of Whittlesbach. Right name, that, innit? I'll put this picture up. This is him here. What's he got on around his neck again, Chris?
Yeah.
What's he got on his arm? Yeah. He's Franz, Duke of Bavaria, and some believe he's the rightful king of England.
Right.
And that's his full name. I'm not even going to try and say it.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to just destroy myself on that one. So he's known by the princely title of the Duke of Bavaria, and it's the former ruling house of the Kingdom of Bavaria. What came from Bavaria again, Chris?
Yeah.
Lighting up, illumination. Anyway, his great-grandfather was King Ludwig III, was the last ruling monarch of Bavaria, up until being deposed in 1918. During World War II, the Whittlesbachs were apparently anti-Nazi, and France succeeded in the House of Whittlesbach as a pretender to the Bavarian throne on the death of his father in 1996, and he lives here. It's called the Nymphenburg Palace.
Weird name.
In Munich. Yeah. Nymphenburg Palace. That's it.
What do you think the layout of that is?
I don't know.
Layout, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where he lives. And this is the summer residence of the former rulers of Bavaria. It's a weird looking place, isn't it?
Hmm. I mean, the one you've got on here that you've sent me, Fatty, that map of it from above, is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen? I'll go back a couple.
It's definitely panned out for something, that, isn't it? What the hell is that?
Well, maybe FB Angel will tell some energetic stuff that belongs to, because
I mean, what does that?
That's what I thought.
It
Yeah.
looks like a bird, doesn't it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's got all kinds of shit going on in it. Crosses, circles, half circles.
Yeah. It's got the canal at the end of it, at the far end.
It must mean something, mustn't it?
Yeah. But they didn't just build these things for a laugh. I mean, look at the size of the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the courtyards at each side of it.
That was definitely panned out as an aerial vision, where it's got triangles, it's got everything around it.
Yeah.
Someone better than us will know that, what it means. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody just said, I hope his eating bills, he can afford his eating bill. And just burn a few peasants in it. Anyway, these are this guy's honours. So he's got it's the Vatican one, really, the Knight's Cross with collar of the Order of the Holy Spectre and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. He's got 3 of them orders of Malta.
So the Malta, what is that tied to? The Pope, then? Is that tied to?
That's tied to the Pope, the Vatican, but I will also think it's tied to probably the Knights of Malta, isn't it?
Yeah. Weird, isn't it? Why would our queen be just dishing out those sirs all over the world?
I know. So the Whittlesbach is a German dynasty with branches that have ruled over territories including Bavaria and the Palatinate and Holland and Zealand and Sweden, including Finland, Denmark, Norway, Hungary, Bohemia, etc., etc. The family had 3 of its members elected as emperors and kings of the Holy Roman Empire. So this is who von Braun is related to. As we found with Schwab, it all goes back to this, for some reason, this type of bloodline. And also, it's quite obvious, some of them aren't very nice people, but they're all these Machiavellian. If von Braun knows that they didn't go to the moon for argument's sake, and he carried on spouting it off, then they don't care about lying in front of a camera and going on Disney and telling us all we're going to the moon and putting some cartoons on, do they?
Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, we've often said that these, these families or these people that do this stuff, their egos must be out the roof. And if he thought he was going to get caught as an SS officer, he'd do anything. I mean, you got the perfect stool there, haven't you? But then his gravestone was that admitting before he died or after he died.
Don't know.
It's all bollocks, And what was it? I mean, what I mean is when he asked for that to be put on his gravestone, people might not have been looking at what he was saying. And then flash forward 50, 60 years, wherever. Now we're looking and saying, "Hang on a minute, he said that. Was that his cry for help? Look, I'm sorry, I had to do it. I had no choice."
Whether it were cry for help or just a piss take.
Oh, just a piss take.
In Patrick Stewart on SS Enterprise.
Yeah. No, it's not SS. What's it called? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, anyway, Star Trek. Yeah. Anyway, and House of Stuart is really anyway.
Ah, right. That's what you mean. Yeah.
So he's related to all these. They're related to the House of Windsor directly through descendants of Sophia of Hanover, a Whittlesbach princess who had inherited the succession rights of the House of Stuart, and they were passed on to the House of Windsor. The House of Hanover, The House of Hanover, and members known as the Hanoverians, is a European royal house of German origin that ruled over Hanover, Great Britain and Ireland at various times during the 17th and 20th centuries. I didn't get taught that at school.
I was just about to say that. I didn't get taught that at school. I actually was quite surprised by that.
Yeah.
I didn't know the German. I just didn't know that, did you?
George I became the first Hanoverian monarch of Great Britain and Ireland in 1714. At Queen Victoria's death in 1901, the throne of the UK passed to her eldest son, Edward, a member of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, the last reigning member of the House lost Duchy of Brunswick in 1918 when Germany became a republic. And all these lines, they all come back now. Is he related? He'd be a distant cousin of a distant cousin, maybe. But as we know, these like Tony Blair, Tony B. Liar. Yeah, same thing. All illegitimate bloodlines as well.
And also, do you think they move these monarchs around like this? The Germans and blah, blah, blah.
Chess game, innit?
Just to confuse the shit out of you as well. So, when they're trying to write history on it, no one knows who the goodies and baddies, if you like.
Yeah. One interesting link, and before we go, I mean, there were quite a lot of surviving houses, House of Hanover, and all these others. But one name popped up, and the Stuart line is also linked to the Guggenheims. The Guggenheims are related to the Stuart line. Can you remember we did this in the Gore thing, Chris? The Guggenheims allowed the CIA or OSS at the time to use their estate, Castle Gould and Hampstead House at Sands Point, Long Island, for housing the Paperclip operatives to be checked in and checked out. So the Guggenheims were related to the Stuart line via marriage as well. And also, they're mentioned in the Springmeyer's book of the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati, or the Bavarian Illuminati, which, I mean, Bavaria is all over this already. And they're mentioned directly amongst 26 other families. I don't think they're the main families. I think they're like a sub families. And von Braun's seem also related to Edward III of England, also known as Edward Windsor, who was King of England and Lord of Ireland. Yeah. So, yeah. Ironically, famous siblings that are related to King Edward are Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal, the actors, brother and sister. Yeah. Their relations from the father's side. Hilary Duff. She's 10th great granddaughter and also 18th cousin of Queen Elizabeth. Michael Douglas.
Right.
Apparently, King Edward III had strong genes because Michael Douglas is also a relative and Queen Elizabeth's 19th cousin. Irma Thurman. She also, remember Edward Longshanks in Braveheart?
Cat's trying to get up.
Yeah. So Irma Thurman's related to King Edward as well. So that was just an interesting piece of info I found. So anyway, we're up to what? An hour and a half or so. We're nearly finished this part one. So when you think about it, that somebody just see Bavaria, home of the Disney castle, and you're probably right, that isn't it?
Yeah,
when you think about that.
Yeah.
That's not a bad pink.
No, I think it is the Bavarian.
Is that what it is?
It's one of them anyway, somewhere from around there, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's got
Dave Murphy's in the house as well.
Disney Castle's got that nice
allegedly Dave. Yeah.
Little arc over it as well.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Showing
the firmament.
Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Somebody's asked, did Anthony Sutton end up suicided? Well, he stopped writing, that's for sure, because I think he apparently got death threats. So it said at the beginning of that video, I'll post a full video on Sheep Farm 2, so you can watch the full interview if you haven't never seen it before. He's quite, he's a good speaker. You can tell he's angry as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than somebody who's just woken up to realise they've been lied to all the life.
Just, as a side run fight, I was watching that one you put on. Oh, I've forgotten his name now. What's the guy? I'll show them the concentration camps. The Russian guy.
Oh, Bezmenov.
I watched the one you put on. I've never seen it before. Where he's talking about how he got out of Russia, and he was in India, wasn't he? And he pretended to be a hippie. It was funny as hell. I'd have a look at the Bezmenov video Dom's put on Sheep Farm. He's really good. He's really good character in it. But when you were talking, I just found it interesting because you were a diplomat, wasn't he? And he said when they flew anyone into Russia, the first thing he'd do is just play them with booze and get them drunk. But the way he goes into the detail, get them drunk, then after 3 days, let them not have any booze and let them get a hangover, and then they're at the most pliable.
Probably been drugged as well.
Well, yeah. Very interesting.
New Schwarstein Castle. Yeah, I think we mentioned that in the Schwab thing.
Yeah.
Is that what it was based on? Disney's New Schwarstein.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Castle.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of stuff go back to Disney, as Godful Masters pointed out that Disney and that map of Disney Park has certainly. And it's strange how Germany seemed to be the centre of all of this, doesn't it?
Yeah. Or is it England?
Yeah,
now?
it did. Yeah. But again,
got
like you said, they've just spread these people out.
I mean, 'cause you can say that Switzerland's the centre of something, London's the centre of something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, obviously, Switzerland, Chris, that small country with no army. I mean, Hitler didn't bother invading that and just emptying all vaults out.
Yeah.
He just decided to invade France instead, a bigger country with a bigger army.
Literally a gentleman's bet. Leave all his money there.
Yeah.
We'll have the squabble, then we can all divvy it up at the end.
Yeah. Trading places, dollar bet. All right, everyone, we're going to call that a night. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'd like to thank everybody for coming in. I think we got up to 350-ish people in the house. It was quite good. Quite a good turnout, which always freaks me out a little bit when people are watching, even though I always watch other people's. It's a strange one, isn't it?
When you're going to do what's the second part going to be? Live or on Sheep Farm?
We'll probably finish it off live. That's going to be on Operation Paperclip. More Nazis and NASA stuff. Yeah, more CIA links. I like
the space chats. Yeah.
Well, we'll get into space.
Never a straight answer.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say as well. Sorry, Fatty, just quickly. If anyone wants to, there's some good. I like watching Apollo Detectives on YouTube.
Apollo Detectives, right?
Yeah, I think it's a guy from Nexus magazine, but they do some good chats about the space nonsense. I was listening to one today, and they were saying the thing is, everyone has a go at them for denying, landing on the moon, but they're saying, but we wanted them to land on the moon. We're all space nuts. But when you realise it's bollocks, then you have to come out and say it. But I'm a science fiction fan. I wanted it to be true, but unfortunately, it's not. I think probably science fiction. I think probably science fiction fans and people who really want it to be true are the ones who look a little bit closer and go, "That's bollocks."
Yeah, nonsense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like that rumor that your nostrils are smaller than mine.
No, that's not a rumor. Mine are definitely smaller than yours.
I thought, in fact, your nostrils.
Rabbit season.
Yeah, rabbit season. I thought your nostrils. I thought you were actually wearing a pair of sunglasses tonight, but they're not. It is your nostrils.
Now we're actually live. Everyone can see that your nostrils are clearly bigger than mine.
Right. Well, when I go into the post office, they put their arms up like that. Put that sawn off down. Yeah. Put that sawn off.
I'll admit I've got bigger ears than you because you've got ears like a dinosaur. But other than
they don't exist either.
What, your ears?
Yeah. All right, we're going.
Yeah.
We'll see you at some other point in the future.
Yeah. See everybody. Take care. Look
after each other. The nostril wars, that's what people are saying now. There probably won't be a show on Saturday because we've done this week after, and that'll be show 100 we do next, won't it? We're recording one tomorrow with Mark Devlin and Lance from Rise Above. So that should be pretty interesting. Yeah. It's always good to chat with them guys. So see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.
That were very camp, that were like Larry Grayson.
Do you know, I can't help it. You know. Do you remember when I used to
Sorry,
manage...
we're not even gone yet.
I was going to say, you remember when I used to manage that cafe up north?
Yeah.
When I was in Leeds, the campus thing I ever said, I was managing a cafe, and I had a tray with a teapot and some teacups on it, and I ran past, and because obviously I used to buy the stuff, and I went, we really need to make sure we stock up on herbal teas.
You didn't have your vest on, did you?
You know, as you say it, I went, and I had a tray like that, and as I said it, I thought, that is literally the campest thing I've ever said.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's as camp as all the other camp things you've ever said.
Just the arty side of me, fat.
Yeah, it is the arty shitey side of you, isn't it? Yeah. I'm sure there's a camp person in all of us trying to get out, especially if the LGBTQ ABCDFG fraternity would have us believe. All right, see you all later. Bye.
Ciao, bye.
Be a part of the oceans and sky. When I was young, before my life, I was a part of the oceans and